Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission, as always, is to take a stack of really critical sources, distill all that knowledge, and just deliver it straight to you. We do the reading so you don't have to.
And today, we are really getting into the weeds of software development. Specifically, we're talking about a role that can make or break a modern team, the Agile coach.
And our foundational text for this is the book Agile Coaching by Rachel Davies and Liz Sedley. It's pretty much considered a classic in the field.
It really is, and they set the stage perfectly. They define Agile, and for our purposes, we're talking a mix of XP, Lean, Scrum, that whole family, it being fundamentally about one thing.
Teams working together to build great software.
Exactly. But they're also very clear that the hard part isn't, learning the ceremonies or the tools. That's the easy bit.
The complexity is in the people.
It's always the people. It's coaching people to adopt these new ways of working, often pushing against, years of habit? Decades, sometimes, not to mention organizational inertia. It's about, as one contributor put it, handling the rough edges and difficult bits.
So our mission for this deep dive is to pull out the most practical, the most actionable advice from their work. We want to give you the blueprint for what a successful coach actually looks like in practice.
We'll cover everything. The soft skills, which are probably 80% of the job, the team dynamics, the core ceremonies, and then dive into the technical excellence that underpins it all.
Right. And Ron Jeffries, in his foreword, he talks about the stories, the checklists, and these crucial hurdles the book presents. We're going to try and unpack those hurdles one by one.
Not just what they are, but what they feel like and how you, as a coach, can navigate them.
Okay, let's do it. Let's start at the very beginning. The coaching stance. What is the fundamental attitude you need to even begin?
The book puts a huge amount of weight on this idea of the coaching stance. At its core, an Agile coach helps a team apply Agile values to produce great software.
It's not about being a project manager, then. Not about dictating tasks.
Not at all. It's about facilitation. It's about guidance.
Yeah.
You need this situational awareness. You have to understand the team's context, where they are right now, and then figure out how Agile values can help them from that specific starting point.
And the attitude that flows from that, the book says it's patience.
Patience is key.
Mm-hmm.
But they make a really critical distinction.
It's not complacency.
Exactly. It's not the kind of patience where you just sit back and wait for things to magically improve. It's proactive, persistent. It's the patience of a mentor who keeps gently pushing, nudging the team forward, but understands that real change takes time.
So what does that look like in practice? Let's say a team just isn't adopting a new practice. Maybe they're not writing tests first.
The first place the coach has to look is inward. That's the discipline. You have to take responsibility for the process not working. The question isn't, why isn't the team getting it?
The question is, what am I doing wrong here?
Precisely. Am I pushing too hard too fast? Is the timing just terrible because they're under a huge deadline? Did I even do a good job of explaining the value of this change? Why should they care?
That's a huge psychological shift. It moves the burden from the people you're trying to help onto the process itself.
And that prevents burnout in the coach, and it prevents you from blaming the team, which would just destroy any trust you're trying to build. You have to embody that idea. There are no bad people, only bad systems. If my system for introducing change isn't working, I'm the one who needs to fix it.
And this all feeds into communication style, which they get very specific about.
Oh yeah, the language you use is critical. It's all about creating solidarity.
Using we and us.
Always. It's a simple change with a massive impact. Instead of standing over someone's shoulder and saying, you need to update your burnup chart, you say, we need to update our burnup chart.
It's subtle, but it immediately signals you're in it with them. You're part of the team, not some external auditor.
And on the flip side, they warn you to avoid absolute terms. Words like never, always, right, or wrong.
Why are those so damaging?
Because they're conversational dead ends. They invalidate everything that came before. If you tell a developer, you are always writing buggy code, what can they say to that? They just hear an insult.
Not advice.
Not at all. Or if you say test-driven development is the only right way to code, you're dismissing every piece of successful software they've ever written using a different method. It just creates resentment.
So you need nuance, specificity, which is, I guess, much harder than just throwing out a generalization.
Much harder. And it's the
Right.
perfect lead-in to the next core skill they cover. Deep listening.
Right. And they treat listening not as this passive thing you do while waiting for your turn to talk.
But as a dynamic interactive skill, it's maybe the most important tool you have for creating psychological safety.
Okay, so how do you do it? What are the techniques?
First, you have to consciously create space. This is the hardest part for most people. When someone is talking and they pause, you have to resist that overwhelming urge to jump in and fill the silence.
Because that pause might mean they're thinking?
Or gathering the courage to say something difficult. You have to let the silence do its work. Your job is just to hold that space for them.
And you're also communicating non-verbally while you do this.
Absolutely. You need a relaxed, open expression, eye contact. Small affirmations like a nod or an or I see. These aren't signals of agreement. They're just signals that you're receiving the message. It makes the speaker feel heard and safe to continue.
Now, here's the tricky part they mention, processing the information while they're still talking.
Yes. The biggest temptation is to interrupt with your own story or your own solution. Oh, that happened to me once. You have to kill that instinct.
Your focus has to remain 100% on them.
Right. And you have to mentally separate the facts from their interpretation. They use a great example. A team member comes to you and says, Nicola completely ignored my design.
Okay.
Your internal thought process can't be, oh, Nicola's a problem. It has to be, okay, Chris holds the opinion that Nicola ignored his design, and he feels upset about it. You don't actually know the full story yet.
So you don't jump to conclusions. You paraphrase to confirm.
Exactly. You say something like, so if I'm hearing you right, you put a lot of work into that design, and you feel like it wasn't used in the final implementation. Is that accurate?
That does two things, doesn't it? It gives them a chance to correct you, and it also just slows the whole conversation down. It takes some of the emotional heat out of it.
It absolutely does. And while they're talking, you're using that extra processing power because we think faster than people speak to read between the lines.
So you're looking at body language, tone of voice.
And you're trying to figure out their motivation. What do they actually need from you right now? Is it just empathy? Do they need concrete advice on a technical problem? Or are they flagging a bigger systemic issue and they need your support to fix it?
So if they seem frustrated, you might even name that emotion for them.
You might. It sounds like you're feeling really frustrated. You worked all weekend on that, and now you feel like it was for nothing. Is that where this is coming from?
You validate the feeling, you give it a name, and that builds trust.
And all of that groundwork is what allows you to give feedback that actually lands and to handle conflict when it comes up.
Let's talk about feedback first. The structure is everything, right?
Everything. You have to separate the observation, the raw data of what you saw or heard from your assessment or your feelings about it.
Can you give us a concrete example of that?
Sure. You start with a specific observation. Yesterday, during the retrospective, I noticed you took a couple of calls on your cell phone. It's just data. It's undeniable.
And then you add your concern.
Then you add your concern. I'm concerned that because you were distracted, you missed the part where Chris walked through the problems he was having with the new design.
See, that's completely different from saying you were being disrespectful in the meeting.
World's different. It focuses on the behavior's impact on the team's goals, not on attacking the person's character. And it gives them space to explain. Maybe it was an emergency. You don't know until you ask.
And you have to balance this with positive reinforcement.
Constantly. They call it catching them, doing it right. And it's not just a feel-good exercise. There's a cognitive reason for it.
You're not just encouraging the team, you're actually retraining your own brain.
You are. The research they cite from Linda Rising shows that when you actively look for positive things, Mike, that's great, the build is running so much faster since you reconfigured it, you start to categorize people more positively in your own mind. It fights against the natural tendency to develop these negative biases about people's performance over time.
It's an antidote to cynicism.
A powerful one. Now, when conflict does flare up, you need a more structured tool. The book recommends Marshall Rosenberg's Nonviolent Communication, or NVC.
And this is a very specific four-step process.
It is. Because when we're in a conflict, our brains just go into fight or flight. We get defensive. NVC forces a different, more constructive path. The 4 steps are observation, feeling, need, and request.
Okay, let's walk through that. Say a developer gets angry and storms out of a design meeting.
Your instinct might be to say, you were so unprofessional. But with NVC, you start with the neutral observation. When you walked out of the design review.
No judgment, just what happened.
Just what happened. Then you state the feeling you perceived. I guess you were feeling pretty frustrated. Then you guess at the universal need that wasn't being met because you have a need to feel heard and you needed more time to explain your idea to Roger.
And then the final step, the request.
The request. This is the crucial part. It's a positive, actionable, future-focused question. Would you be willing for me to set up another meeting with just you and Roger so you can have some uninterrupted time to walk him through your design?
Wow. The entire tone shifts. It's not an accusation anymore.
It becomes a collaborative effort to solve the underlying problem, which was an unmet need for communication. It's an incredibly powerful de-escalation technique.
And finally, for this section, what about getting the whole team to agree on something when you need consensus?
Yeah, you need tools to make the level of agreement visible. The book suggests something called gradients of agreement. It's a scale, from full-on endorse all the way down to block.
Or the more common one, fist to five.
Fist to five voting is great because it's so fast. A fist means, I block this, we cannot proceed. 5 fingers means, I'm all in, let's do it.
And the power of this isn't in finding the majority.
No, not at all. The power is in surfacing the dissent. The coach's job is to pay attention to the person holding up 2 or 3 fingers, the mild dissenter.
Because if you ignore that person,
They may never fully buy in. They might even unconsciously sabotage the idea later. Your job is to stop the process and say, okay, you're at a 2. Can you tell us what your concerns are? Is there a way we can modify this proposal to get you to a 4?
you're not aiming for everyone to be a 5. You're aiming for everyone to feel heard.
That's the goal. Without that, you don't have real commitment. You just have compliance.
This all flows so nicely into the next part, taking these individual skills and applying them to the group, gelling the team.
Right. Agile is all about cohesive teams, but that social glue doesn't just appear. It takes time. And the coach's job is to create the conditions for it to form.
And one of the simplest, most powerful tips in the book is about lunch.
It's a great tip from Liz Sedley. She says to eat lunch with the team as often as you can. Not necessarily to talk about work, but just to be present.
Why is lunch so important?
Because it's an informal space. It's where the real issues come out. People will share concerns over a sandwich that they would never bring up in a formal retrospective because it might feel too political or too emotional.
You hear the real story.
You hear the real story about the deadline pressure, or the problems with the client, or the slow build server. She says you should even keep index cards handy to jot down the things you hear, because that's where the most valuable coaching intelligence comes from.
And that informal time is what builds trust.
It is. The book cites George Dinwiddie, who says trust relies on reasonable self-disclosure. And the coach has to model this behavior.
Be transparent. Admit when you're wrong. Ask for help.
If you as the coach can't say, I ran that retrospective really poorly last week, my apologies, then why would a developer on your team feel safe admitting they made a mistake in the code? It starts with you.
So to actively build empathy, they recommend an exercise from Patrick Lencioni, Personal Histories.
This is a powerful one. You have each team member share a short story about a challenge they overcame in their past. It could be from childhood or their first job, anything.
The point isn't therapy.
No, the point is vulnerability. When you hear that your quiet tester had to overcome a severe stutter as a kid, or that the lead developer failed his first year of university, it changes how you see them.
They stop being just the tester, and become a complex, relatable human being.
It builds a deep well of empathy. And that's essential for bridging those disciplinary gaps, the classic friction between developers and testers.
And for that, they suggest role swapping.
Literally have a developer pair with a tester for a day or a week. Let them walk a mile in each other's shoes. The developer will very quickly stop seeing the tester as a blocker and start seeing them as a partner who is saving them from releasing bad code. It builds immense mutual respect.
We also can't ignore the physical environment. The coach has to be a champion for a shared workspace.
A tireless champion. The ideal is the whole team and only the team sitting together in one dedicated space.
Because that proximity just accelerates everything.
It's an information radiator in itself. That question that would have taken 3 emails in an hour to resolve gets answered in 30 seconds by just turning your chair around. It's an exponential increase in communication bandwidth.
But I have to ask the question for 2025. How does this apply in a hybrid or fully remote world? The book was written when co-location was the default.
That's a huge and valid challenge. And while the book obviously favors physical proximity, the spirit of the advice is about minimizing friction and maximizing visibility.
So for a remote team?
For a remote team, the coach has to overinvest in creating that shared space digitally. It means things like a persistent video channel that's always on,
Hmm.
a virtual team board that is treated with the same reverence as a physical one, and making sure remote team members are given key facilitation roles so they never feel like second-class citizens. You have to consciously fight the proximity bias.
That makes sense. And even for physical spaces, they talk about customizing it.
Yes, making it theirs. Adding plants, photos, team posters, anything to make an impersonal open-plan office feel like a safe, personalized home base.
Yeah.
It fosters that sense of collective identity.
Okay, so the team is gelling. Now, the coach's main job, introducing change. The book lays out a very clear strategy for this.
And the first step is critical. You must sell the problem, not the solution.
You can't just walk in and say, we need to do continuous integration.
That's a recipe for resistance. You have to help them see the problem first. You walk in with data. Hey team, I was looking at our metrics. It takes us, on average, 6 weeks to release a feature, and after every release, we have a 40% failure rate that requires hot fixes. That's causing a lot of stress and weekend work.
You make the pain visible.
You make the pain visible. And you do it without criticizing or blaming anyone. You're not saying your process is bad. You're saying our current process is creating this painful outcome.
Once the problem is agreed upon, then you move to building ownership.
Through inquiry, through asking open-ended questions. How can we reduce that failure rate? What would happen if we could release every week instead of every 6 weeks?
And they specifically warn against asking why questions.
They do, because why can so often sound accusatory even when you don't mean it to. Why did you break the build is heard as an accusation.
Whereas something like, what were you hoping to accomplish with that last check-in, is much more open.
It focuses on intent, not blame. It invites a story, not a defense.
To really get to the bottom of these problems, they recommend Taiichi Ohno's 5 whys technique.
A cornerstone of lean thinking. You just keep asking why to drill down past the surface level symptoms to the actual root cause.
Let's do a quick example. The feature was delivered late.
Okay, why? Because the code was unstable and needed a hotfix. Why was it unstable? Because the developer rushed. Why did they rush? Because they were trying to hit an unrealistic deadline. Why was the deadline unrealistic? Because the customer keeps adding new requirements mid-sprint. Why does the customer do that? Because we don't have a clear process for managing scope change.
So the root cause isn't a bad developer. It's a bad process for scope management.
Exactly. And the big caution here is that sometimes the root cause is outside the team's control. It could be an organizational policy, a budget issue, something that needs to be escalated. The coach's job is to make that root cause visible, even if the team can't fix it themselves.
And moving from fixing problems to proactive learning, the coach needs to decentralize knowledge.
Yes, you don't want the team to be dependent on you. You want to build their capability to learn on their own.
A great method they suggest is a study group.
I love this idea. It's a small, informal group, maybe over lunch. You pick a book or a topic, and each week a different person is responsible for facilitating the discussion on a chapter.
And because there's no single expert in the room,
Everyone has to participate. You can't just
Yeah.
sit back and listen. That active engagement leads to much deeper understanding and retention.
they also talk about tech talks.
Right. Internal presentations where someone shares something new they learned or a cool piece of work they did. It's a great way to cross-pollinate ideas across the organization.
And finally, when you're introducing a new Agile practice, the mantra is show, not tell.
The hammer analogy from the book is perfect. If you see someone using a hammer incorrectly, you don't give them a lecture on the physics of hammering.
You take the hammer and show them the right way to hold it and swing it.
Exactly. So when a team is doing a retrospective for the first time, the coach should offer to facilitate. You demonstrate what good facilitation looks like.
And you give a running commentary. You expose your thinking.
Yes. You say things like, I'm noticing that the energy in the room is a bit low, so let's take a quick 5-minute break. Or, I'm going to pause here because I've noticed we haven't heard from Allison yet, and I want to make sure we get her perspective.
You're teaching them how to facilitate by modeling the behavior you want them to adopt.
You're showing, not telling.
Okay, so let's get into the day-to-day flow of an iteration. Starting with that cornerstone ceremony, the daily stand-up.
The logistics here are so important. It has to be brief. 15 minutes, max. Standing up physically helps enforce that.
And the focus has to be razor sharp.
It does. It's not a status report for the manager. It's a synchronization meeting for the team. The focus should be on the tasks on the board. What did I finish? What am I starting next? And what's blocking me? That's it.
I love the practical tip about using a speaking token like a tennis ball.
It's a simple physical trick that works wonders for teams that struggle with interruptions. If you don't have the ball, you don't talk. It forces everyone else to listen.
And the absolute golden rule? You do not solve problems in the stand-up.
Never. The moment a problem-solving conversation starts, the coach has to step in and say, great topic, let's put that in the parking lot.
The parking lot being a visible whiteboard where you capture the issue.
Yes. And you have to be specific. The book rightly criticizes the phrase, let's take that offline.
Because offline means it's never going to happen.
Exactly. The parking lot forces accountability. You write down the issue, who needs to be in the follow-up conversation, and you ensure that conversation happens immediately after the stand-up. It protects the whole team's time.
But Liz Sedley offers a really important warning here against being too dogmatic.
She does. She says you can't treat the Scrum formula like a straitjacket.
Yeah.
The rules are like training wheels for a new team, but the goal is self-organization.
So an animated discussion, even if it breaks the format a little, is better than robotic compliance.
1,000 times better. You're looking for genuine engagement and collaboration, not just people going through the motions. A coach needs to be able to tell the difference.
And one of the biggest hurdles for bigger companies is team size. The stand-up just breaks down after, what, 9 or 10 people?
It really does. It
Yeah.
becomes passive. People tune out until it's their turn to speak. The solution isn't a longer meeting.
It's to break the group into smaller, more focused sub-teams.
And then you coordinate between those teams with a scrum of scrums, where a representative from each sub-team gets together to sync up on dependencies and integration points.
Okay, shifting from the meeting to the work itself, user stories. The book points to Ron Jeffries' 3 C's.
Card, conversation, and confirmation. This is the essential framework.
The card is just the placeholder, right? The physical index card.
It's just the trigger. The conversation is the heart of it. That's the rich, collaborative discussion between the developer, the tester, and the customer or product owner to build a shared understanding. The coach's job is to make sure that conversation happens.
And the confirmation is the acceptance criteria.
Right. The coach is constantly prompting, how will we know when this is done? How will we test this? To get that confirmation pinned down before a single line of code is written.
And they often use that given when then template for those tests.
It's a great way to remove ambiguity. It creates a tiny little contract for what done means for that specific story.
Now, when it comes to planning an iteration, they use a fantastic analogy.
The stir-fry recipe. I love this.
Break it down for us.
Okay, so first, preparation. You have to have your ingredients prepped. That means the stories are prioritized and, crucially, sliced into small, manageable pieces. You can't estimate a giant, vague story.
Then fry one story at a time.
Exactly. Focus the conversation on one story until you have a shared understanding and an estimate. Don't let the team get sidetracked by talking about 3 different stories at once. It's chaotic.
And third, control the heat.
This is about making sure the estimates are realistic. And that means grounding them in the team's actual historical delivery rate, their velocity.
Which leads directly to what they call the yesterday's weather trap.
This is such a common and dangerous pattern. The anecdote is about a team whose velocity is consistently around 25 points per iteration. But the customer is pressuring them to commit to 35 points for the next one.
And the team agrees because they're optimistic. Oh, this time will be different.
It's wishful thinking. And it almost always ends in failure, missed deadlines, and a crushed team morale. The coach's job in that moment is to be the voice of reason, to protect the team by insisting that the plan be based on data on yesterday's weather, not on hope.
This theme of visibility is everywhere, and the ultimate tool for that is the team board.
And the book is very, very pro-physical board. They have a great term for electronic boards.
Information fridges.
Because you only get information out of them when you deliberately open the door and look inside. A physical board is an information radiator. It's broadcasting its status to the whole room all the time. It pulls people towards it.
But again, the remote work question, is a physical board still relevant?
I think the authors would argue it's more relevant than ever, even for hybrid teams. The act of physically moving a card, of standing together at the board to discuss a blocker, that creates a focal point and a shared experience that's very hard to replicate digitally.
So for the days the team is in the office, the physical board is the single source of truth.
And you make sure it's meticulously updated and visible to remote members via a dedicated camera. It's not an either. It's about using the best tool for the job. And for creating a shared reality, a physical board is hard to beat.
Structurally, it's pretty standard, right? Columns for stories, tasks, in progress, Done.
Pretty standard. But they have a great tip for visualizing status with simple color-coded stickers. Red for not started, yellow for in progress, green for done.
So you can see the health of the iteration from across the room.
Instantly. Too much yellow means too much work in progress. Too much red late in the sprint means you're behind. It's a simple, powerful visual control.
They also talk about tagging cards with names or avatars to show ownership, and this is a place where the coach needs to be watching carefully.
Very carefully. You're looking for anti-patterns? And a huge one is a single developer who has 3 or 4 cards all marked in progress at the same time.
What does that usually signal?
It's a major red flag. It means they're either context switching like crazy, which kills their productivity, or more likely, they're blocked on one task and have started another without asking for help.
So the coach needs to go over and ask, hey, I see you're juggling a few things. Is everything okay? Is there a blocker we can help with?
That's the job. You're a blockage detector. And finally, board hygiene is critical. You can't let it get cluttered with old stuff.
They recommend a full reset after every iteration.
A full wipe. Take everything off, start the next iteration with a clean, blank canvas. It's a powerful physical ritual that reinforces the idea of a fresh start and a clear focus. All right, moving into the part of the process that really ensures quality, technical excellence, and continuous delivery.
And this all starts with a shared understanding of what done actually means.
The definition of done. This has to be a concrete checklist created and agreed to by the entire team, devs, testers, product owner, everyone.
And it covers everything, not just code is written.
Oh no. It covers unit test passing, integration test passing, code reviewed, documentation updated, security scans done, usability checked, whatever's required to make the feature truly shippably finished.
It's what prevents that disconnect, where a developer says, I'm done, but the tester says, I haven't even seen it yet.
It coordinates the effort of the whole team toward a single standard of quality. It's non-negotiable.
Okay, so once you have that, how do you handle bugs?
The book has a strong opinion on this. They say you should not let testers bury bug reports in some separate electronic bug cracking system.
Why not?
Because it becomes a hidden backlog. It's out of sight, out of mind for the developers. It feels like someone else's problem, and it just grows and grows.
So you make bugs visible on the main team board.
You make them hyper-visible. Use a bright pink or red card. Physically attach it to the story that's failing. It becomes a blocker that the team has to address. Any bugs that you decide to defer, you rewrite them as new user stories and put them in the main backlog to be prioritized along with all the other work.
There's a great painful anecdote in the book about this.
The tester who only reported bugs via email, copying just her manager, the developers, buried in their work, just missed the emails, so they kept deploying code without her feedback.
And the authors describe this as pouring gasoline onto a fire.
A perfect description. It created this huge rift between development and testing. The solution was simple and immediate. Stop the emails and start using brightly colored cards on the board that physically block the story from moving to done. It made the quality issue a shared public problem to be solved.
So the core practice for building in quality from the start is test-driven development, TDD.
This is the absolute heart of the technical practices. The red-green refactor cycle.
Red, write a failing test.
Green, write the absolute minimum amount of code to make that test pass.
And then refactor, clean up the code you just wrote, making sure the test still passes.
It's so much more than a testing technique. It's a design technique. It forces you to think about how your code will be used before you write it, which leads to much clearer, more modular designs. It's the ultimate shift-left practice.
But it's a huge change for a lot of developers. They warn against a big bang adoption.
Absolutely not. You have to introduce it incrementally. You use that proper cycle we talked about, problem, options, plan, execute, review, to break down the barriers one by one. Maybe you start with the build server, then get the tooling right, then start pairing with 1 or 2 interested developers.
And for all this automation to work, speed is essential. This brings us to continuous integration, CI.
The practice of merging all developers' work together frequently, multiple times a day, and running the automated tests. And Liz Sedley's rule on this is non-negotiable.
The 10-minute build.
The 10-minute build. If your entire build and test cycle takes longer than 10 minutes, developers will stop waiting for it to finish before they check in their next piece of code. And that's how you get a broken build that wastes everyone's time.
So if the build time creeps up to 12, 15, 20 minutes,
it becomes an emergency. The coach has to sound the alarm. The team have to stop feature work and dedicate time to speeding up the build. It's a foundational investment in their own productivity.
And the status of that build has to be impossible to ignore.
Forget email alerts. They just get lost. You need a big, visible radiator, a traffic light on a big monitor, a lava lamp, something physical.
They mention enhancing the build page with team avatars.
Yes, the South Park-style visual shaming. When the build breaks, the avatar of the person who broke it shows up, maybe on fire. It's a bit of fun, but it creates immediate visibility and social pressure to fix the problem right now. A broken build is the #1 priority.
And this whole philosophy is completely at odds with the everyone works in their own long-lived branch strategy.
They call that out specifically as being incompatible with CI. It's the opposite of integration. It hides problems and technical debt until the very end, when it's painful and expensive to fix.
Okay, another pillar of technical excellence: clean code and incremental design.
The core idea here is to design for what you need now, with an eye on the next few stories, but to resist the temptation of big upfront design.
No analysis paralysis.
None. The design evolves. It gets better through constant rework and refactoring. Improving the design becomes a part of every developer's daily job, not a separate phase.
And when you have to explain this to the business, you call it housekeeping.
That's the perfect metaphor. You're not adding new features, you're just cleaning up the internal structure of the code so that you can add the next feature more quickly and safely. If you never clean the kitchen, eventually you can't cook in it anymore.
Now, for a whole team to work on the same code base, they need collective code ownership. And for that to work,
You need a consistent house style, coding guidelines. This is so important for stopping what they call battles in the code.
where one developer changes all the formatting to their preferred style and the next developer changes it all back.
Wasting hours on pointless arguments over tabs versus spaces, or where the curly brace goes. The coach needs to facilitate a session where the team agrees on a set of standards and automates them with a linter.
They mention using a thumb vote to get consensus.
Yeah, a simple, quick way to agree on rules, like no new function should be longer than 10 lines. That single rule forces developers to write small, focused, readable units of work.
And the key practice that ties all of this together is pair programming.
It's the ultimate tool for collective ownership, quality, and knowledge sharing. 2 developers, 1 keyboard. All code is written with a built-in, real-time code review.
But the coach has to watch to make sure it's being done effectively.
Right. If one person is just watching passively, that's not pairing, it's just watching someone else type.
So you encourage techniques like ping-pong programming.
Exactly. One person writes a failing test and then passes the keyboard to their partner to write the code to make it pass. Then that person writes the next test and passes it back. It keeps both people actively engaged. But it's intense, so mandatory breaks are also essential.
So we built the feature, it's done. Now we get to the final crucial loop of the iteration: reflection and celebration, starting with the demo.
The demo is such a powerful motivator. It's a hard deadline that focuses the team on getting to that shared definition of done.
And the cardinal rule here is you demo a clean, tested, release candidate build.
You never, ever demo the latest code straight from the development branch. That's how you get what they call dying on stage. When the demo crashes and burns in front of your key stakeholders because of a preventable bug, it's a huge morale killer.
The coach's job during the demo is to be a facilitator, not a presenter.
Your job is to manage the room and capture the feedback. The customer should start by explaining what the goal of the iteration was, then the team presents their work.
And the coach is in the background, quietly taking notes.
On everything. What the stakeholders say, but also how they react. Their body language. Are they excited, confused? You're capturing all of that data.
And before the meeting ends, you quickly summarize the key feedback points.
Just to make sure everyone is aligned and nothing was misunderstood. Then that feedback immediately becomes new items for the product backlog.
And after a good demo,
You celebrate.
Oh.
Always, even if it's small. A team lunch, drinks, even just a special coffee break. You have to acknowledge and reinforce success.
then the most important improvement tool of all, the retrospective. And it has to start with the prime directive.
It has to. It's so fundamental that the book recommends reading it out loud at the beginning of every single retrospective.
Let's hear it.
Regardless of what we discover, we understand and truly believe that everyone did the best job they could, given what they knew at the time, their skills and abilities, the resources available, and the situation.
And the reason that's so critical is because it fights against a built-in human bias.
The fundamental attribution error. Our tendency to see other people's failures as a result of their character, they're lazy, they're careless, while we see our own failures as a result of the situation.
So the prime directive forces you to assume good intent.
It forces you to look at the system and the situation, not to blame the person. It's what creates the safety needed for honest reflection.
Structurally, the retrospective is a bridge.
A bridge from the past to the future. So you should spend about half your time looking back to gather data and insights, and the other half planning concrete actions for the future.
And they suggest some great techniques for gathering that data.
The timeline is a great one. The team collectively builds a timeline of the iteration on a whiteboard, with good events and bad events. It helps everyone see the bigger picture and how different events influenced each other.
And the emotion seismograph.
I love that one. Each person draws a line showing their emotional state, their morale over the course of the iteration. When you put them all up on the wall together, you can instantly see patterns. Wow, everyone's morale crashed during deployment week. Why is that?
It turns feelings into data you can analyze.
Exactly. And then the second half is all about planning actions. And these actions have to be small, specific, owned by someone, and realistic.
The coach has to push back against vague, unactionable items.
And critically, if the actions from the last retrospective didn't get done, you have to talk about why before you add any new ones. Was the action too big? Did no one really own it?
They use the action shoes analogy to categorize actions.
It's so helpful. Orange gumboots for quick fixes you can do right away. Gray sneakers for things that require more investigation or data gathering. And brown brogues for bigger, more considered actions that will become part of the plan for the next iteration. It clarifies the level of commitment.
Finally, we turn the lens on the coach themselves, the growing you section.
A coach cannot be stagnant. You have to be continuously learning, otherwise your ideas get stale.
And that means reading widely.
Not just tech books. Psychology, leadership, management theory, books about other industries. You're looking for new patterns, new metaphors, new ways of thinking, and you have to time box that learning. Even one focused hour a week makes a difference.
And you solidify that learning by sharing it.
By teaching it. Give an internal presentation. Write a blog post. You don't have to be the world's foremost expert. The act of preparing to teach something forces you to understand it on a much deeper level.
Liz Sedley's story about joining Toastmasters is really powerful.
It is. She'd had a crisis of confidence, and she joined Toastmasters to get back on her feet. It's a safe place to practice public speaking, and more importantly, to practice giving and receiving structured, constructive feedback. Those are core coaching skills.
And the book stresses the need for deep, intentional reflection.
Using a journal. When you have a really difficult day, a conflict with a stakeholder, a retrospective that went badly, writing about it helps you articulate your thoughts and feelings.
And when you review that journal later, you start to see patterns in your own behavior.
You build self-awareness. And a brilliant variation on this is the success journal,
where you only write down the things that went well.
It's a powerful tool to fight that negative inner critic we all have. It forces you to focus on your achievements and keep your own motivation high.
Which brings us to the final and maybe most important piece of advice: self-care.
Be kind to yourself. You are going to make mistakes. You're dealing with complex human systems, and it's messy. The advice Liz got was simple but profound. Why are you being so hard on yourself? Be kind to yourself.
And you have to extend that kindness to others.
Assume everyone else is also doing their best, even when their behavior is frustrating. Instead of judging them, get curious. Try to find out the underlying reasons for their behavior. There's almost always a story you don't know.
So after all that, what does this mean for you, the listener? We've really traced the full arc of the Agile coach. We've seen how it's this constant interplay between soft skills, the deep listening, the NVC, the inclusive language, and the hard technical disciplines like TDD and the 10-minute build.
Right. And the central theme that runs through this entire resource is that coaching isn't about installing a process and then walking away. It's about cultivating an environment, a continuously learning, psychologically safe environment where the team can do its best work. The team board provides the technical discipline, and the prime directive provides the emotional safety. The coach is the guardian of both.
The book puts so much emphasis on self-reflection, and I particularly love the idea of the success journal. It's a way to combat that negativity bias and burnout. We're all taught to learn from our mistakes, which is vital, but if that's all we focus on, we can become way too harsh on ourselves.
So that brings us to our final provocative thought for you. As a coach, you're becoming an expert in using tools like retrospectives, the emotions seismograph, and action shoes to help your team learn from both its successes and its failures. The question is, are you applying that same level of compassionate rigor to your own professional development?
Are you being as kind to yourself in your own reflections as you are committed to being toward the people you coach?
That's the ultimate test.
A perfect place to end. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the art of Agile coaching. We'll see you next time.